This video is about cool looking monsters, real and pretend. So last year, one of my closest friends passed away. I was by his bedside when he died. And his name was Justin Martin. We called him Judge, affectionately known as Judge. So I'm making up a new monster journal. This monster journal is honouring the memory of my friend Judge. I'm doing this because Judge left me a whole heap of sci-fi collectible sculpture things. Unboxing this one here from Sideshow with Alien. Yeah, it's a special significance for me because the very first time I saw Alien in the cinema, it was with my friend Judge. It's 1979, I think we're both 16 years of age, going in to see this scary movie. It was just an instant hit, one of our favourite monsters of all time. So I'm sketching this in my new monster journal, and this is done with Inktense pencil by Derwin. It's a watercolour pencil, and it was an indigo, and so when I just add a bit of water to it, you can sort of see it's almost instant watercolour. Also using my watercolour palette to add in a bit more colour here and there. I'm just building up layers. I'm going to leave this drawing for a while and come back to it at the end of this video. Right now I want to look at the real deal. The praying mantis. It looks cute, but if you can imagine it the size of a xenomorph, it would be terrifying. Also one of the coolest creatures ever. Except this one's real, it's not from somebody's imagination. It may have inspired some of the imagination of those who created Alien. Now this is the real deal. And look at those claws. Such an amazing critter. This is unusual in that in Tasmania there are two species we normally see as the big brown species and the little green ones. And this one is much bigger than our normal garden mantis, which is the little green one. Not quite as big as the big brown ones we get, and unusual for Tasmania to have this sort of mantis. I'm just quickly sketching this with a 3B pencil. 3B is my favourite pencil to sketch with. He's not keeping still for me though. Like a lot of wildlife, when they don't keep still, you start sketching at one angle, they move, so you just do another quick sketch till you end up filling the page full of a bunch of quick sketches. So with nature journaling sometimes, or with just sketching, you only get the gesture, you get the pose, you get the feel of the animal, the movement, the rhythm that it makes. So you never have to worry about doing things too rough. You shouldn't be too precious with a journal. Just have it as a place where you can just really just cut loose and just sketch quite wildly. And that kind of seems to also capture the whole idea that this guy is not going to keep that still. He'll keep still for 30 seconds or so, then he's going to move on. Probably about time for me to release this guy back into the wild. But I want to put him on something nice and green so that he'll hide from possible predators. So the perfect green thing to put this guy on would be a poa we've got here. Nice big poa. Poa is a native grass of Tasmania. Because around our studio and home we only ever plant native plants. We don't have introduced plants. Such a cool animal. So, my nature journal's a bit of a mess here. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Got a few photographs and we're going to add in a couple. And here I'm actually making sure that I am doing the eyes in perspective. It's one of the things I often forget, and sometimes it makes things look a bit wrong. But if you realise that things have to be in perspective, and even just draw a few perspective lines, it helps make things look right, especially faces and heads. Now I'm adding a bit of the watercolour pencil, the Inktense pencils by Derwin. I find it's just probably a good way just to lay down some colour rather than dashing straight in with watercolour. I just find this a good start, going from pencil to watercolour pencil. Okay, now I am chucking in some water on top of this, just with a wet brush. It wasn't until I tried the Inktense ones. That's what I love about these pencils, just instant watercolour. When I was in primary school I used to catch these guys all the time. Had them as pets. Sometimes, unfortunately, because nature is cruel, they'd catch a grasshopper or something and eat it at the wrong end, which made me feel bad. I used to feed them cabbage moths mainly. Cabbage moth is like a white butterfly, which is in plague proportion here. It's an introduced one. So that was one of the things that used to get fed to them. That and flies, because flies are very annoying. So now I have my pan of watercolour. It's what I take out in the field with me. Here, just underneath the claws of the mantis, are these really nasty looking like needles coming down. And this reminds me of something else in nature too. And that's the teeth of the grey nurse shark. If you look at the teeth on this shark, often called a ragged tooth or a sand tiger, it's got really needle sharp teeth. And that's not for slashing flesh, that's for catching fish. And what I see here, the same with this mantis here, is that it's got these sharp, needle-like, jagged bits down under its arm there. And that's for catching prey. It's not for cutting, it's for gripping and holding on to something that might try and get away. Almost with every piece of work that I do, every bit of art, when I start painting, or if I'm doing a detailed drawing, there comes a stage during that process where I sort of think, this is not that good. It's kind of like, I think, it's kind of, I don't know, and you sort of feel like quitting, yet it's probably where you just have to push through and see it to the end. It hasn't got all its highlights yet. You can always go back over it with white gouache in places. And so, yeah, you're sort of seeing it to that point where it's not quite finished. It kind of looks a bit dull until you start putting the white highlights on. And so in this case with the watercolour, I've started sort of like a light greeny colour. And I'm going darker and darker, which is how I tend to work with watercolour. And so there is a dull stage because I'm dulling it down, making it darker, getting bits to the almost black, and then I will get there and pull out some white and do the highlights, and the highlights hopefully will bring everything to life. So I'm doing lots of building up of layers, fine little adjustments, and just layering different glazes of colour over top of one another the way you want it. So now I've got like a white marker pen. Now I'm doing the white highlights. I find that using white on this buff paper can be a lot of fun. Really make things stand out. Little white highlights here and there helps lift your subject out of the page a bit more. After doing that, I'm just going to colour in one of the other sketches I've done here. Like a pencil just broke. I'm not going to be deterred by the pencil just breaking. I'm just going to lay this colour down anyway the best I can. Even that bit of broken pencil can be saved. And because using the colours from the other ones fresh in my mind, I'm just going to use the same colours. So this one here is not from a photograph. This one is just one of those quick rough sketches that I did. Probably the best one I did, considering it wouldn't keep still for me. I'm going to pop in another photo picture here. I was taken from a photo. I particularly wanted to do the face and in particular the eye of this guy. So this mantis has this like a stripe running through the eye, which I think is a really interesting predefining feature, and it feels like documenting this animal's not going to be complete until I have a pretty good reference of the eye. And the interesting thing about the eye of the mantis is it has this tiny little dot that seems to follow you around wherever you go. It always looks like it's always staring at you. But wherever you're viewing it from, you sort of see a little dot looking back at you. Okay, back to the white pen trick. Using white pen just to stick in the final highlights. I love doing this bit. It's my favourite bit. But like a lot of things in life, you can't do your favourite bit until you've done the hard work. In this case, the hard work of popping all the colour in first. So here's my praying mantis page in my nature journal. There is space on here if I want to in the future come back and put in some notes if I find out some more information about this mantid. Back to my monster journal. Just like the others, I'm now adding some white highlights to the alien creature, the Xenomorph. So this Xenomorph is obviously not my creation. I don't own copyright on this, so I would never have this for sale anywhere. It's just a fun thing in a book. If you like, it's kind of like an artistic review on Sideshow's little sculpture there. I find that not all the artwork you do has to be for sale or be professional or even have anything to do with what you'd normally do. It's fun sometimes just to sketch an object in the room, and it's fun just to review some of these sort of monster things that a friend Judge had left me. And this is just one. I've got like about 20 or more boxes of different monsters. Most of them are predator. So let me know in the comments if you'd like me to draw a predator. Because this channel is more about wildlife and art, so this does cover the art aspect of it. It's fantasy wildlife, sci-fi wildlife. But my friend Judge did leave me some very cool things. I just can't think of a better way to honour his memory than to just have a crack at drawing some of these. If he was around, I think he would love to see me do this. he left all these things to me, probably because I was probably the nerdiest guy he knew. So this white pencil's pretty good, but I think I'm probably going to swap over to some gouache. Gouache is like a watercolour, but it's a little bit more opaque. You can use it like watercolour, or you can use it like acrylic paint. Gouache is really good for chucking up some highlights, kind of like what I've been doing with the pen, but you can put some nice big slashy brush strokes in. And so here's the finished piece of the alien. And back in the nature journal, here's my finished pages of the praying mantis.